chase it. So you're talking about having somebody come in once a week to water if it's a hot, dry spring or early summer. Not more often, but then they need to be able to spend an hour or so at the site to make sure they get enough water on to meet that goal. In the case of the church, the space may be too big. There might need to be some thought given to other ways of getting plants established.
These maybe over a few years.
And then the planter is like the contradiction to everything I've said, because planters can run out of water very, very quickly. In the planter, well, goodbye ground nesting bees. A thick coat of mulch is probably the only thing that's going to keep that happy. And then some kind of regular watering program. That's often guys with trucks or dollies who have a way to come by and get water. It won't need to be watered as often as a planter full of petunias, but it'll still need some regular watering. The last thing on water that I want to ask you is, do you have a chance to have a water feature on the property? So we'll rule out the container. We'll rule out the sloped north-facing garden. We'd probably rule out the parking lot, but I'm waiting to hear, is it soggy there in springtime?
No.
So what you sometimes find with parking lots is they're built with slight slopes to encourage runoff. If you're lucky enough to have a space where the water runs down, you can get a temporary wet spot where you can have spring blooming wild wet place flowers, even though it might be dry in August.
Actually, our parking lot is the water feature.
Yeah, so it's maybe something to keep in mind for the future. If the parking lots ever resurface, and there's an opportunity to ever so slightly change the grade to bring some of the water into the central space, you can change what you have to do. A lot of properties are like that. I just spent some time this fall taking some old plumbing, some old gutters, and tying them up to the roof of my garage so that the water comes down onto a little mound that I made in the middle of my property, runs down a little stream into a bog that I built, rather than just running off and wetting the foundation of the garage. So I don't do any extra watering, but I get, many, many square feet of rainwater extra added to my water features. So there's ways of taking advantage of that, yeah.
We're actually looking at another portion of the back of our office where there's a major drain spout that comes down. And I believe it was Karen who did the presentation on rain gardens at one of the city's presentations a year ago or whatever it was. We're actually, we're thinking about trying to incorporate something like that in the corner of our an old landscape bed to get rid of the gutter system and actually make it into a rain garden there. So.
Yeah, so that is another thing I'll mention. We haven't gone after that specifically, but if you're near a building or a parking lot or someplace where you have a source of water as runoff water, you can take advantage of that. I'll give you a few quick examples. In Toronto, one of the parks near me has a runoff grading area they've established. The land was formerly flat. They scooped it out, and they made a space that's meant to be a temporary pond. It's not meant to be permanently wet because there's concerns about kids falling in and drowning and so on. But it takes the runoff from the park buildings and the parking lot, channels it there, and then allows it to soak slowly in the soil. As a result, they get bulrushes and other damp soil plants, but it's not intended to be a permanent pond. I've got a small pond on my property, and the bog feeds into the pond, and the garage roof feeds into the bog. And so that's another way of dealing with it. And the third way of dealing with it is just to say, I'm going to have a natural, slightly damp property, like a ditch or a depression in the swale, that you funnel some water into. And that just increases the variety of plants you can grow. For instance, cardinal flower is ever so beautiful, but it really likes to have moist roots. And so if you get a damp ditch, I saw cardinal flower blooming in ditches in Toronto. I think somebody must have put it there, but it's something that you can do. And then there's a blue plant, the great blue lobelia, which will bloom nicely in the same circumstances. So it just increases what you So